Say UFT class 6, 7, UFT class 7, object repository. All of you put mute. UFT class 7, object repository. See, what is object repository? What is object repository? A repository, it is general term. You can find repository term in manual testing also. A repository means a common storage place. Do you have any idea, Samir? What is object repository? Guess. What is object repository?
Object repository is a sort of database for the objects which are used by the application rendered test.
Less clarity. Database. Okay. Say it is a storage place for storing objects information. What type of objects? Runtime objects, or test objects, or utility objects, or automation objects? Test objects. Test objects only. Observe. Resources menu, object repository. See, test objects. You know what is test object? Reference of runtime object. See, it is a storage place to store test objects. Test objects information. Say UFT tool is object based test tool. Not only UFT, you take any functional test automation tool, every tool is object based test tool only. Based on objects only, functional and automation test tools perform test operations. See, object repository is a bridge in between test script and AUT. UFT reads statements one by one. What is test execution process? UFT reads statements one by one during execution and gets objects information from object repository. Based on that information, performs operations on AUT. See, object repository. See, we have two types of object repository in UFT. Two types of object repository. One is local repository. Local object repository, shared object repository. Shared object. First, what is local object repository? UFT creates a local repository for every action during recording. See, UFT creates a local repository for every action. It is action level. For example, in our test only one action, one local repository. Suppose in our test four actions, four local repositories. UFT creates a local repository for every action. This action is not English term action, UFT term action. You know what is action? Set of statements to perform operations. For every action, automatically during recording. Okay. See, local object repository file is internal file. Already we discussed UFT is one tier application, standalone application. It doesn't have any database. It stores its resource files using file format on physical hard disk. It stores its resources using file format. See here some internal files, some external files. Local repository file is internal file. User no need to create and maintain. UFT creates and maintain local repository files. Local repository files saved along with the test. If it is shared repository external file, user has to create and maintain external files. See, user can edit local objects. User can edit local objects. We can add some more objects, rename objects, next delete objects. It is internal file. UFT save internal this one local repository files, local repository files along with test scripts. User no need to maintain. Next, shared object repository. See, user means tester. User creates shared object repository files one by one. Shared object repository files. We have two possibilities for creating shared object repository files. Either by adding local objects or by exporting local objects or by adding objects. User creates shared object repository files either by adding objects or by exporting local objects. Next, shared object repository file, external file. Just a minute. shared object repository files or external files. User need to maintain external files. Same, user can edit shared objects. User can edit shared objects. Now tell me, Saujanya, we have two types of object repository: local repository, local object repository, shared object repository. What is local object repository?
UFT creates a local repository for every action automatically during the recording.
Good. Next, continue.
And user can edit, add, rename, and delete.
User can edit local objects, add, rename, and delete. Okay. Next.
And I think it is also an internal file where UFT saves local repository files along with the test script.
Okay.
Along with the test scripts.
Okay. UFT only maintains local repository files. User no need to maintain local repository files. Okay. You tell me, Radha, what is shared object repository?
A user creates shared object repository files. It's by their either adding objects or exploring local objects. These are external files and maintain external files.
User has to maintain external files. Okay.
User can edit these ones.
Yes, user can edit shared objects. Okay, put mute. Just a minute. Launch object repository, resources, object repository, blank. It is new test. Record, enter agent name, enter password, click OK button. Stop recording. Launch object repository. See, this is a local object repository. Object repository created. Okay. See, in this test only one action, one local repository. Another example. Suppose in my test two actions. First action, just a minute. Suppose first action name, login. Next, one more action, design call to new action, insert order. See, in this test two actions, login, insert order. First select login, record, just a minute. You can generate launching statement also. Enter username, enter password, click OK button. Next, select insert order action. Select fly from, fly to, date, class of journey, next number of tickets, next flight schedule, order, enter name, customer name, order, stop. Launch object repository. See, two local repositories, login, next. See, in this login, 4 objects. Next, insert order. Okay na Samir? Local object repositories, action level. Any confusion? Radha?
Hello.
Did you understand the
Yes, sir.
local repositories?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. See, next, how to create shared repository. Observe. Suppose I want to create shared object repository for this window. Observe the navigation, resources menu, object repository manager, object repository manager. Just a minute. Object, add objects, otherwise here add objects icon is there, plus symbol, object, add objects, show the window or web page, click OK. Here select object filter. Okay, first general navigation. Next time I will explain all filters. See, objects information added. Save. It is external file. Save. Suppose login. Extension is TSR, test shared repository. Close object repository manager. See, file created. Observe shared object repository. Shared object repository. File extension is TSR, test shared repository. Just a minute. Samir, I want to create shared object repository for Gmail homepage. Guide me.
Go to resources.
Resources.
Object repository manager.
Manager.
And file.
Not
save.
file. Wrong navigation. Object. Add objects. Show the web page. browser. OK. Select option, required option, click OK. Observe. Objects information stored. Next, save. Okay. So I think all of you familiar with creating shared object repositories. Next, I will explain operations on object repository. Just a minute. Operations on object repositories. See, operations on object repository. See, I will introduce all important operations. Concentrate. First one, add objects. See, we use the add objects feature for creating shared object repositories. And you can use this feature for local repository also. Suppose while recording, UFT stored 4 objects information, but we want some more objects. Yes, you can add local objects to local repository. See, local and shared. But adding objects to local is optional task. Usually UFT adds objects to local repository during recording. If you want to add some more objects, you can add. But this is optional, rare use. But shared repository, by adding objects, we can create shared object repository. Just I will list out the topics, then I will explain all topics with examples. Next, rename objects. We can rename local objects and shared objects. Next, delete objects. We can delete local objects as well as shared objects. Next, export local objects. Export local objects. See, by exporting local objects, we can create shared object repositories. Already we discussed in 2 ways we can create shared object repositories. One is by adding objects, another way is by exporting local objects. Next, merge object repositories. See, we can merge shared object repositories only. At a time, 2 repositories only. If you want to merge 4 repositories to 1 repository, 4 to 1. First take 2 repositories, merge. Next take another 2 repositories, merge. Next take last 2 repositories, merge. Like that you can merge multiple repositories. At a time 2 only. 2 to 1 only. Next, associate shared object repositories, 1 or more repositories. What is the purpose of associating repositories? I will explain in practical chapter. Next, instead of associating, alternate is there. We can load repositories at runtime. Load shared object repository at runtime. Next, map objects in between object repository and AUT. Map objects in between object repository and AUT, application under test. Next, export shared object repository to XML. Say shared object repository file extension is TSR, that is local file format, not global file format. Only UFT application can understand that format. If you want to edit shared objects without UFT tool, you export to XML format, global format. Using XML format without UFT application also we can edit shared objects. Rare use. Next, import from XML. Export to XML, import from XML. Combined features. Next, create or define new test objects. Say using this feature we can create shared object repositories even though application is not ready. By getting objects information from developers, either theoretical information or screenshots, we can create shared object repositories. But it is not recommendable feature. See, these are the important operations on object repository. First, add objects to local and shared. Just a minute. Just a minute. Take new test. Launch object repository. It is blank. Next, record. Enter agent name John. Enter password HP fixed for sample application. Click OK button. Okay. Stop recording. Next, launch object repository. See objects information stored. My flight sample application window, OK button, agent name edit box, password edit box. Next, create shared object repository. Guide me, Radha. I want to create shared object repository for this login screen. Guide me. Radha.
Resources.
Good. Resource.
Yes,
just a minute. Resources menu.
Object repository manager. Objects.
Object.
Add object.
Add object. Show the window or web page.
Yes.
Click OK. Select required object filter. Just I am using default. I will explain remaining. Click OK. objects information stored. It is external file. User has to maintain. Save.
You have to save that one.
Save. Suppose login. Extension is
Dot TS.
Okay. Close object repository manager. Observe on
Yes.
desktop login.tsr file stored. Okay. Next, I will show object filter options. Observe. Resources, object repository manager, object, add objects. Show the dialog box. This is dialog box. Click OK. Here I am selecting second option. Default object types means it stores all default objects. See, parent mandatory. For this login dialog, my flight sample application is parent. Next, OK button. Next, object, add object, show the dialog box, click OK. This time, all object types. It stores all objects, including static objects. Means objects static object which doesn't have functionality. For example, observe here incorrect user name or password. This is static, only message. Static object. Sometimes we capture static objects for comparison. See, if you select all object types, then it stores all objects including static objects. What is static object? Object which doesn't have any functionality. Observe, click OK. See, this time it stored my flight sample application, that is parent window, login. Next, incorrect username or password. This is static object. Just a minute. View, highlight in application, blinking. Can you view Saujanya?
Yes, sir.
What is the difference between default object types and all objects? Default objects and all objects?
Default object is like where we select the object, and all objects is it selects also static objects too.
Yes. Default objects stores all objects which are having functionality. All objects means it stores all objects including static objects. Static objects which are not having functionality. Okay, next another two options. See object, add object. Show the window, click OK. Say I'm selecting first option. Selected object only, no descendants, means it stores only selected objects. Selected object, single object, no child objects. No child objects. It selected object only. It stores selected object only, no child objects. Click OK. See, it stored only my flight sample application window. Next, just a minute. object, add object, show the dialog box, click OK. This time also I am selecting first option only, selected object only. Observe Surendra, this time two objects stored. Why two objects? Why two objects, Surendra?
Not sure, sir.
Why not sure? Concentrate. Samir, why this? Why two objects stored this time?
Because that window has two objects.
Pardon?
Because it has two objects.
It has two objects. Selected object only na. Observe once again. Observe. The file new. File new. Resources, object repository manager. Object, add objects. Show the window. Click OK. I'm selecting selected object only. Click OK. How many objects stored? Two objects.
One object.
One object.
One object.
Okay. Next time, observe. See, object, add objects, show the dialog box, click OK. Same option, selected object only. But it stored two objects. Why?
Because it has a parent also.
Yes, parent. Parent mandatory. See, my flight sample application window is independent window. But this dialog box having parent. Parent mandatory. No childs in this filter, but parent mandatory. Okay. See, next one more option is there. One more option. See, object, add object, show the window. Just a minute. Take new. Object, add object, show the window, click OK. This time select last option, selected object types. Here you can select class of object, object class. Suppose I want to store only buttons or only edit boxes or only radio buttons, etc. And you can select more than one class of object also. Suppose I want to store buttons and edit boxes from a window or web page. Yes, you can select more than one object class also. Select object types. Click select. Here I am going to store only buttons. Select button class. Click OK. See, it stored only buttons. Cancel button, OK button, WPF button. What is this WPF button? View highlight in application. This question mark, that is help button. Only buttons, but parent mandatory. Parent mandatory, only I selected buttons. Just a minute. Saujanya, I want to store only links from this Google homepage. Guide me. Only links.
Objects.
Object.
Object, add objects.
Add objects. Show the web page.
Show the link. Yeah.
Next,
Next,
show the browser. Show the browser. Click OK.
Click OK.
Here
Now
select fourth
go to
option.
select object type. Yes.
Again select.
Select.
Here I want only link objects.
Links. So we can click link.
Check link object
the link.
class. Click OK.
Check the link object. Yeah.
OK.
And okay, yeah.
It's stored only
links will be selected.
Only links.
The links.
Only links. Parent of links is Google page. Parent of page is Google browser.
Google browser.
Here parent, grandparent also there. Okay.
Yes.
Just a minute. Radha, guide me. I want to store only edit boxes from this calculator window, VB window. Only edit boxes.
Object.
Object.
Add objects.
Add objects. Show the window. Click OK. Select fourth option. Again select.
Then you can check for edit box.
Edit box. Click OK.
Okay.
Again click OK.
Select OK.
See, 3 buttons. 3 edit boxes. Result value 1, value 2. Parent mandatory. Okay. See, this is about options. Just observe what are the options. First one, selected object only. If you select first option, then it stores only selected object, no child objects. Next, second option, default object types. If you select default object types option, it stores all default objects which are having functionality. Next, third option, all object types. If you select third option, then it will store all objects including static objects. Static object which doesn't have functionality. Next, last option, selected object types. If you select last option, again we have to select class of object, then it will store those object types only. Here you can select more than one class of object also. Suppose I want to store edit boxes and buttons from this window. Just a minute. Edit boxes and buttons. New object, add object, show the window, click OK. Select edit box, next button. Okay. Okay. See, buttons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons, 3 edit boxes and parent mandatory. See, okay now, Surendra, did you understand the object filter options? Any confusion? Surendra not responding. Pardon?
Can you show default objects one more time?
Okay, okay. Just a minute. Surendra, did you understand? Not responding. What is the problem, Samir? Tell me.
Show me one more time default objects, how to add the default objects.
Second option, resources, object repository manager, object, add objects, show the window or web page, click OK. Here select second option, click OK. Observe here how many objects are there with functionality in this window. Count How many objects? 3 edit boxes,
8 objects.
5 buttons, and 1 parent. How many objects?
Okay, total. So 8 objects with 1 parent will become total 9.
9. Observe, calculator parent, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons, 3 edit boxes, total 9 objects. These are default objects. Next, just a minute. If you select all object types, it stores all objects including static objects. Messages, error messages, help messages also. Add objects, show the window, click OK. Third one. Observe. This time it stored all objects na. Just a minute.
Yeah.
Value 1. What is this value
All
1?
objects.
Just a minute. Labels. Label 1. Can you observe the label 1? Label
Yes,
2.
sir.
Now find the difference between default object types and all object types. All objects.
All objects added the static.
Static
Text
objects
also.
also.
Yeah, sorry, static objects.
Default objects means all objects which are having functionality. Then what is the confusion? Where is the
No,
confusion?
I was. No, I understood.
Okay, cool. Okay, now Saujanya, did you understand these object filter options?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. See, add objects. See, we created one shared repository, login TSR, external file available on desktop, and we have one local repository. See, we opened one test script, recorded script, it has local repository. Okay, next, first one, add objects. We can add objects to local also. Observe. Launch object repository. Here 4 objects information stored. See, future purpose I want to store one more object also. This WPF button also. This is local repository. Object, add objects to local. Show the object. Click OK. No need to save. Here no save option. Auto save. Whenever you save the test script, local object repositories will be saved automatically. Close. Next, I want to add some more objects to shared repository. How to add? Resources, object repository manager, file, open, it is external file. Browse path of the shared repository file. See limited protection, no rename. Next object, no add objects. All options are disabled. Limited protection. Again go to file menu, enable editing. Next object, just a minute. Open the application. Object, already we stored maximum objects. Just a minute. object, add objects. I want to store only this list drop down box, combo box. This is combo box. Okay. See, combo box added. Save. It is shared object repository. Save. Same. Remaining also same. Rename objects. Suppose I want to rename local object. Observe. Resources, object repository. I want to rename this OK button. Select OK and right click rename. Suppose monkey. No need to save. Observe. Script also changed. OK to monkey. Saujanya, if I execute this script, will it execute or show error?
It will not gonna show any error because we have changed in the object.
We changed object name monkey.
Yeah.
In this application, no monkey button only OK button how it recognizes? Will it execute or not?
It will not.
It will execute. It will execute. Run the script. Executing executing. How it is executing? Observe. Resources, object repository. Observe, we changed the external name only. Sometimes we rename objects for our convenience. External only, not internal properties. Observe right side. What is the object text property value?
That is okay.
Okay only. See, internal name same, but external name only changed. If you change internal name, it won't execute. Suppose internal name also monkey. This time it won't execute.
Okay, I got it.
Run the script. See, it is waiting for that monkey button. Maximum 20 seconds. Default synchronization time. After 20 seconds, it will show error. See, it is searching. See, observe. Cannot identify the object monkey. If you change the internal name, it won't execute. Generally, we change external names for our convenience, easy identification point of view. Okay. Run. This time executing. Okay. See, rename local objects. You can rename local objects. Rename shared object. Suppose I want to rename shared object. Suppose this OK button to XYZ. Guide me, Surendra. I want to rename shared object. Object repository available on desktop. Guide me. Surendra. Samir. I want to rename shared object.
Go to
OK
resources.
Button. Resources.
Object repository manager.
Manager.
File open.
File open. Browse path of the shared repository file. Next, again go to
Okay.
File, Enable Editing.
Enable.
Otherwise, here Enable Editing toolbar option is there. Next, select required object and right click, rename. Suppose XYZ. XYZ. Save.
Now save the repository.
Close. Next, see, I think all of you familiar with these two operations, add objects, rename objects. Next, delete objects. Suppose I want to delete monkey button from local repository. Guide me, Radha. I want to delete monkey button from local repository.
Resources,
Resources,
object repository,
object repository, select the
file,
object,
object monkey, and delete.
delete. Confirm deletion. No need to save.
Save.
Close object repository. Next, Saujanya, I want to delete XYZ button from shared object repository.
Resources,
Resources,
object repository,
object
Manager.
repository manager,
manager, file,
file,
open,
open,
the login str.
yes, sir, browse path of the
Yeah, here, sir.
shared object repository.
Yes. Click
Next.
OK and enable the
Editing, file enable editing, or here enable
Editing.
editing option is there. Next, select
then
XYZ button
select XY
and right click,
and right click and
delete,
delete,
confirm deletion, save.
confirm deletion,
It is
and save.
it is external file, save.
So we need to save it. Yeah.
Good. See, all of you, I think all of you familiar with first three operations: add objects, rename objects, delete objects. Next, fourth one, export local objects. See, by exporting local objects, we can create shared repository files. How? Launch object repository, resources, object repository. See, these are local objects. We recorded that script. UFT stored local objects to local object repository. Go to File menu, export local objects. Suppose ABCD file name. You can choose your own file name. You can choose file names ABCD stored on desktop. Close object repository. Guide me, Radha. Export local objects. I want to export resources,
object repository,
file,
export to local objects.
yes, export local objects. Here enter name, otherwise it takes a default name.
And create.
Close local object
Close
repository.
Yes.
Okay. Next, merge object repositories. See, here no restrictions, no limitations, and no recommendations from vendor. Some companies preferring small size object repositories. Some companies prefer large size object repositories. What is the advantage of small size repositories? Suppose yours is a small test. For that you can associate small repositories. Suppose if you associate large size repository, suppose for entire project you created only 2 or 3 object repositories. For small test, suppose login, for login 4 or 5 objects information required. For the small test, if you associate large size repository, what will happen? Execution performance will be reduced. Advantage of small size repositories: performance high, Advantage of large size repositories. Maintenance easy. Observe Samir. Some companies prefer small size repositories. Some companies prefer large size repositories. Both are having advantages as well as disadvantages. What is the advantage of having small size repositories?
The advantage will be the performance of the test will be
Yes. Suppose
faster.
if you create small tests, that time you can associate small size repositories. Performance will be high. Disadvantage of small size repositories, maintenance
Is
difficult.
yeah.
Suppose for your project you create 200 shared repositories, maintenance difficult. Next, same way, what is the advantage of large size repositories? Maintenance easy na,
Yeah.
but disadvantage performance low, execution performance, test scripts execution performance low. Any confusion?
No, sir.
Okay. Next, we can merge. Suppose if you want to merge small size repositories, you can merge. Suppose observe, this is only bonus feature. Whenever you see in UFT tool, we have several features. 25 to 30% features only mandatory features. 25 to 30% features only mandatory features. Remaining 70 to 75% features, alternate features and bonus features. Most of the time we don't use bonus features. Mandatory features important. Actually, this merging repository is not mandatory feature. For example, creating shared object repositories. Add objects mandatory feature. But merging repository is not mandatory feature, bonus feature. Okay. Suppose I want to merge these two object repositories, login TSR, ABCD TSR, resources, object repository manager, tools, object repository merge tool, browse path of the primary file, first file, login TSR, browse path of the second repository, ABCD TSR. See, here it is showing primary file, secondary file. I am telling one first file, second file. Means primary file means it adds secondary file objects to primary file. It adds secondary file objects to primary file. If any duplicate objects are there, it considers primary file objects. Click OK. See, it is showing statistics. 0 objects with same name, 0 objects with in different names, 4 unique objects added from primary file. See, it won't add duplicate objects, it overrides. 4 unique objects added from primary file that are available in secondary file also. Observe last 4 objects are identical in both files. Just a minute. 4 unique objects added from primary file means that objects not available in secondary file. Last one, merge summary. Four objects are identical in both files means these 4 objects are duplicate. See, sample application window, WPF button, cancel button, WPF button, next agent name, password. Observe Radha. 4, just a minute. 4 objects, 4 unique objects added from primary file. What are the 4 unique objects? What is the problem, Radha? You disconnect and connect. Saujanya, can you view my desktop?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Radha, you disconnect and connect. You are not able to see my desktop. Continue, Saujanya. 4 unique objects from primary file. What are the unique objects?
The HP My Flight sample.
That is not unique. That available in second also na.
Okay, you are talking about the unique
Unique
objects.
objects.
Okay.
Here, observe the merge summary. 4 unique objects added from primary file.
So, yeah.
Cancel button.
Cancel button.
Ah.
And password.
Password
No,
available.
password.
From city.
From city. WPF image. And there is one more down.
One more down. Okay. Next, 4 objects are identical in both files.
Those are same, like the flight sample.
Sample app, sample.
Location.
Next, WPF button.
WPF button, agent name and password both are in the same.
Okay. See, after watching this merge statistics, close, save. Suppose XYZ TSR, save. Close object repository merge tool, close object repository manager. See, after merging also you will have source files. If you don't want to store, if you don't want to maintain source files, you can delete them from hard disk. See, external files, you can delete them. Just a minute. Radha, can you view my desktop? Still problem? Hello?
Yes, sir. I'm okay.
Okay.
Hello?
Okay, cool. Now guide me. I want to merge 2 repositories available on desktop, login TSR and ABCD TSR. Guide me.
Resources.
Resources.
Object repository manager. Tools. Object repository tool.
Object repository merge tool.
Object repository merge tool.
Next, browse path of the first repository, primary file. Next, browse path of the second repository, secondary file. Click OK. Close. Save. Enter name.
Yes.
Suppose flights. Save. Close object repository merge tool. Close object repository manager. Okay. Next, associate shared object repositories. We can associate one or more. New. Open object repository. Blank. Next, associate object repository. Shared object repository. Suppose I want to associate this login TSR. Resources. Associate repositories. Click add repository icon. Browse path of the repository. Associate with the action. Click OK. Next, launch object repository. Objects information populated. These are shared objects. No rename, no delete, no enable editing. These are shared objects. If you want to edit shared objects, open shared object repository file in object repository manager and edit. Here we cannot edit. Just a minute. Once again, take a new test. Launch object repository. Blank. Next, associate object repository. You can associate one or more. Associate repositories. Click add repository icon. Browse path of the repository. Suppose login TSR, associate with action, click OK. Resources object repository, objects information populated. Just a minute. You can associate multiple repository also. It supports many to many mapping. Suppose in my test, two actions. Action 1, action 2. For action 1, I want one repository. Suppose a repository 1. For action 2, I want two repositories. A repository 1 and a repository 2. Yes, UFT supports many to many mapping. Observe, design, just a minute, take new test. Create one more action, design, call to new action. See, in my test, two actions. For this test, for action 1, I want one repository, ABCD For action 2, I want two repositories. For example, ABCD and login. Okay. Resources, associate repositories. Just a minute. First, launch object repository blank. Resources, associate repositories. Add. Suppose for first action, ABCD associate with select action 1, associate. Next, add second one, login. Select action 2. For action 2, ABCD also required. Example. Already exists now, you can select with the second action. Okay. Observe resources object repository. See, for first action only ABCD TSR. For second action ABCD and login. Just a minute. Resources associate repositories. Select first repository. First repository associated with two actions. Action 1, action 2. Second repository only for action 2. Okay na Saujanya? Many to many mapping.
Yes, sir.
Now Samir, associating repositories, okay. First of all, why we need to associate repositories? Why we need to associate shared repositories? Tell me. What is the purpose? Samir. Why we need to associate shared repositories?
So for each test, we require a different set of objects. So each repository will have the object which is in that particular repository, which will associate with that particular test.
See, less clarity or no clarity. Observe. My question is, why we need to associate shared repositories? Okay. Answer. If you want to create and execute tests manually, you need to associate shared repositories. If you want to record, no need to associate. While recording, UFT creates local repository files for every action, while execution, it uses local objects information. If you want to record tests, no need to associate shared repositories or any repository. UFT creates local repositories during recording. During execution, it uses local objects information. If you want to create and execute tests manually without recording, for that we need to create shared object repositories and associate shared object repositories. Okay, na Samir? Now tell me why we need to associate shared object repositories.
If you want to run the test manually, we require shared object.
If you want to run the test manually, okay. If you want to create and execute tests manually, we need to associate shared object repositories. Okay. Anyhow, I will show that example in keyword driven methodology chapter. Just remember, if you want to create and execute tests manually, you need to associate shared object repositories. Okay. Next, instead of associating shared object repositories, we can load shared object repository at runtime. How to load? Here I am going to introduce one more utility object, a repositories collection. Yesterday we discussed one utility object, system util. This time a repositories collection. A repositories collection dot add is method. Next, within double quotes, path of the shared repository. Path of the shared object repository. See, without associating, we can load shared object repositories at runtime. Just a minute. Resources, object repository. Just take new test. How to load? A repositories collection dot add. Next, within double quotes, path of the object repository file. Example. See, first one is syntax. See, what is the advantage of loading shared object repository at runtime? We can increase the test execution performance. I will give one small case study, concentrate. Suppose my test is lengthy test, navigating through 4 or 5 screens. I used small repositories. I associated 4 repositories to my test. then what will happen? Suppose in my test, 100 statements are there. I associated 4 object repositories. Each repository having 20 objects, total 80 objects. If we associate, what will happen? From first statement to last statement, all 80 objects burden. Suppose first statement, it has to search for that first statement object out of 80 objects. From first step to last step, all 80 objects burden. Instead of that, if you load repositories at runtime, using this feature, you can handle object repositories dynamically. Dynamic handling of object repositories. How? First, load first repository. Just a minute. First, load first repository. Suppose after 20 statements, first repository purpose over. Remove first repository, then load second repository. This is about dynamic handling of object repositories. Using this feature, we can increase the test execution performance. Just a minute, I will show one small example. Just a minute. Dynamic handling of object repositories. Create on shared repository resources, object repository manager, object, add object, show the window, click OK. Default object types, save, login.tsr. Next, I want one more shared repository for next window. Object, add object, show the window, click OK. Save, orders, two repositories. Associate two repositories, resources, associate repositories, login, next, orders. Generate the script manually. You don't concentrate on this generating script. I will explain next class. I'm creating test script manually. Anyhow, once again, we will discuss in the Monday's next class. WPF edit. of agent name dot set John. Password HP. Button, I want button. What is that button one? There is not WPF button. Just a minute. Tools, object spy. I want this OK button. WPF button only. Dot click. Next, WPF window. Dot for example combo box. WPF combo box from city dot select London close. Run the script. Say for this script, observe Saujanya, this is small script only. Just assume this is a lengthy script. We associated multiple repositories. From first statement to last statement, all objects burden from all objects burden on all statements na.
Yes, sir.
Suppose this is small script only. Suppose just assume ours is lengthy script, 100 or 200 lines. We associated 4 or 5 small repositories. From first step to last step, all objects burden. Why we associated multiple repositories? Just a minute. You remove that second one. Second one. Orders TSR. Just a minute. Remove. If you try to execute this script, it won't execute. After login. See, first repository available, second repository not available, it is not executing.
Yeah, that's right.
Associate second one also. Run. This time it will execute. Okay. Say from first step to last step, all objects burden. Instead of that, you can load repositories whenever required. Put mute, I'll show. First deassociate. Now no object repositories. Try to run. It will launch the application, show error. No object repositories. Next, load repositories at runtime. Repositories collection dot add. Next, path of the repository. Next, after OK click first repository purpose over. Remove this repository. First find the position of repository. I am taking one variable position equal to it is small script. If it is lengthy script, you can increase the execution performance by handling by dynamic handling of object repositories. Dot find that already loaded. Find the repository position. Next, remove. Suppose if you want to remove if you want to remove single repository, find the position and remove. If you want to remove all repositories, no need to find position, just remove all. Next, open second repository, load second repository. What is the second repository name? Orders. At the end, remove repositories. Run. This is dynamic handling of object repositories. Whenever you want any object repository, load. Suppose purpose over, remove that repository, load another repository, like that. Observe, understand this concept. Samir. Any confusion? Samir. Saujanya.
No, sir.
What is this concept? Dynamic handling of object repositories. Advantage, we can increase the test execution performance. See, associating repositories also having one advantage. What is that advantage? If you associate shared repositories, then you can get context help while creating the test. Suppose here I am not associating any repository, just loading. Observe resources, object repository, not associated any repository, just loading runtime. That time you won't get context help while preparing the test. WPF window, open parenthesis, no context help. If you associate, you can get context help. Resources, associate repositories, login TSR, associate with action, select action, associate. Next, open the bracket. Why it is not showing? See, it is providing context help. WPF button, open the bracket, context help. Suppose deassociate, you won't get context help. Resources, associate repositories, remove the repository. Open bracket, no context help. Associate repository. Now open the bracket, context help. Now tell me, Saujanya, what is the advantage of associating repositories?
When we associate the repository, then we can get the context help.
Context help
If
while
we don't
creating the test.
while creating the test. If we
What is
don't
the advantage of
associate,
dynamic? What is the advantage of loading repositories at runtime? We can increase
reduce the
the test execution performance.
We can increase the test.
Whenever required, you can load repository. Not required, you can remove repositories. Dynamic handling of repositories. See, final conclusion. Associate repositories while creating the test. Next, after creating the test, deassociate and load repositories at runtime for execution. Okay, this is the standard way, but you can use associate repositories feature only for creating and executing tests. Nowadays, high configured systems, performance is not the big issue, so that you can use associate repository feature only for creating and creating and executing tests. If you want to increase the execution performance, after creating the test, deassociate associated repositories and load repositories at runtime. Suppose if performance is not the issue in your company, then use associating repositories feature for creating as well as executing test scripts. Okay na, Samir? Any confusion? Why Samir is not responding? Surendra not responding?
No, sir.
Okay. Next, what are the other? Map objects in between object repository and AUT. Say, if you want to rename properly, sometimes no button names. That time, by mapping objects in between OR and AUT, you can identify the objects easily. Map objects in between object repository and AUT. Here two view options available. View options. One is highlight Just a minute. Highlight in application. Next, locate in a repository. See, both are same in purpose, style different. One works from OR to application, another works from application to OR. First option, OR to AUT. First we need to select object in object repository, then it locates, then it highlights corresponding object in the application. Next, second one, first we need to select object in application, then it locates corresponding object in object repository. AUT to OR. Just a minute. This is help button. Help button. Tools menu, object spy. Take hand icon, show this button. Observe Saujanya. What is the text value of this button?
It's null, sir.
Null. Next, another button. For example, OK button. What is the text value of this button?
That is okay.
OK. Next, cancel button. Text value cancel.
Cancel.
See, sometimes developers use symbols instead of names. You want to create tests manually, you must know the button names or object names. Suppose I want to rename this object. For that you can use this feature. Object Repository Manager, View Options. First, add objects. Say view. First select object, WPF button. See, remaining all objects having names. Cancel, OK, agent name, password. But this WPF button not having any name. I want this. See, view, highlight an application. See, it is blinking. Next, cross check. View, locate in repository. First show the object in application, then it will locate corresponding object. Okay. Here I want to rename this button for convenience. First check the functionality manually. This is help button. You can rename. Only external use. Highlight in application. Next, cross check. Locate in repository. First show the object, help button. See, these are the view options. Next, export local objects export shared object to XML and import. This is only this is bonus feature. Bonus feature. Observe resources, object repository manager, file, new object, add object, show the window, click OK, save, suppose repository 1, OK. Next, export to XML, export to XML. XML file name is ABC, OK. Close object repository manager, close UFT tool. See, TSR file format is local file format. Only UFT application can understand that format. If you export objects to XML, that is global format, without UFT tool also you can edit objects. See, now I closed that UFT tool. Just open this XML file. Open the XML file. Suppose I am changing this object name. Just example. My HP My Flight sample application to Hyderabad. Save. Next, launch UFT tool. Open object repository, resources, object repository manager, file, import from XML, browse XML file. Observe Radha, that object name change it to Hyderabad na, from HP sample application to Hyderabad na.
Yes, sir.
See,
Yes.
using XML format, we can edit objects without UFT tool. Actually, it is bonus feature, limited use or no use. Okay, next, last one, define new test objects. Actually, it is not recommendable feature. After getting stable application also nowadays, most of the companies struggling in test automation. Without application automation is difficult process, but feature is there. In rare conditions we can use. What is the purpose of this define new test objects feature? Using this feature, we can start test design process even though application is not ready. Suppose application is not ready, our testing team is waiting. Instead of waiting, you can start test design process using this feature. Test execution after getting stable application only. Without application, you cannot execute, but you can start test design process. How? By getting objects information from development team, either theoretical information or screenshots. Suppose ours is ICICI Bank application, web application. Application is not ready, but we got objects information from development team. Instead of waiting, we can start test design process. Test design. See, resources, object repository manager, object, define new test object. As per developer's information, my application environment is web, browser, suppose browser name ICICI, add. Next, under this browser, some pages, web, select class of object, page, as per developers information pages. First, personal banking. Next, one more page, corporate banking. Next, under personal banking, some links. Sorry. Object, define new object. Environment, web, object, link. Suppose link name login as per developers information. Next, a register, like this. Next, save. Close object repository. Like this, you can create shared object repositories by getting objects information from development team, and you can start test design process. After receiving the application, you can execute the script. If any small changes are there, you can perform changes and execute. See, first I'm taking the new test. Associate repository, resources, first object repository blank. Next, resources, associate repositories. Click add repository icon, browse path of the repository, associate with action. Next, if you know the navigation, start test design. Suppose as per my test requirement, browser of automatically populating context help dot page of suppose personal banking. See, in my repository 2 pages, I want personal banking dot link of I want to log in dot click operation click. Like this, you can create tests. After getting the application, you can execute. If any small changes are there, you can perform changes. See, this is about define new test objects. Tell me, Saujanya, last question for the week. What is the purpose of define new test objects feature?
When the developers are still developing and we don't have all the information,
Not
so
information,
according to
application.
the application, we don't have application developed,
Hmm.
but according to the developers information, we can define, and later we can make the changes and use that script.
See, using this feature is define new test objects. Using this feature, we can start test design process even though application is not ready. How? By getting objects information from development team. After receiving the application, if any changes are there, perform changes and execute script and execute test scripts. But this is not recommendable feature. In rare conditions, you can use this feature. See, these are the important operations on object repository. Okay, we will meet on Monday, same time. Thank you. Any queries, Samir?
No, sir.
Okay, cool.